Have you ever looked into the darkness beyond your campfire and felt like something was watching you? The forest can feel peaceful during the day, but when night falls, every sound becomes a warning. A snapping twig, distant footsteps, and the silence between them can be more terrifying than anything you can see. Tonight you'll hear 3 chilling camping horror stories. Stories that might make you think twice before spending a night alone in the wilderness. Ethan loved camping alone because the forest always gave him a sense of peace. Every trip helped him escape the noise of everyday life. One chilly autumn evening, he reached a quiet clearing just before sunset. The last rays of sunlight slowly disappeared behind the tall pine trees. He pitched his tent beside a narrow trail and gathered dry branches. Soon, a small campfire filled the cold air with warmth and light. As darkness settled over the forest, the fire became his only companion. Everything beyond its glow vanished into complete darkness. The forest suddenly became unnaturally quiet. Even the sounds of birds and insects had completely disappeared. Around midnight, a sharp snap echoed through the trees. Ethan opened his eyes, convinced someone was outside his tent. He stayed completely still and listened carefully. At first, he believed it was only a wild animal passing by. Then he heard slow footsteps moving around the tent. Each step was steady, heavy, and impossible to ignore. Then he heard slow footsteps moving around the tent. Each step was steady, heavy, and impossible to ignore. His heart pounded as the footsteps circled him again and again. Whoever was outside never spoke a single word. Ethan reached for his flashlight but couldn't move. Fear kept him frozen inside the tent. Nearly 30 minutes passed before the footsteps suddenly stopped. The silence that followed felt even more frightening. He remained awake until the first light of morning appeared. Only then did he gather the courage to step outside. The campsite looked exactly as he had left it the night before. Nothing seemed disturbed or out of place. The damp ground clearly showed Ethan's own footprints, but there wasn't a single footprint belonging to anyone else. He packed his gear and drove away without looking back. To this day, he still wonders who walked around his tent that night. Four close friends planned a weekend camping trip deep inside the mountains. They had visited many forests before without any problems. None of them imagined this trip would change their lives forever. They reached the campsite just before sunset and quickly unpacked their gear. The air was cold, but the peaceful surroundings made the place feel welcoming. They laughed together as they prepared dinner around the campfire. Hours passed as they shared scary stories beneath a sky full of stars. The fire crackled while the wind whispered through the tall pine trees. Everything felt calm, almost too calm for such a lonely forest. Shortly after midnight, everyone returned to their tents and fell asleep. The campfire slowly faded until only glowing embers remained. The forest disappeared into complete darkness. Around 2 in the morning, Daniel suddenly opened his eyes. He was certain someone had quietly called his name from outside. The voice sounded strangely familiar. Daniel. The voice whispered once again from somewhere beyond the trees. It sounded exactly like his younger brother calling for help, but his brother was hundreds of miles away at home. Daniel carefully unzipped the tent just enough to look outside. The campsite was empty and the fire had completely burned out. Only darkness waited beyond the edge of the trees. A cold breeze passed through the forest as the voice returned. This time it sounded much closer than before. It whispered his name slowly, almost inviting him into the woods. Every instinct told Daniel to answer the voice. But then he remembered something his grandfather had once told him. Never answer anyone calling your name in the forest after midnight. Daniel stayed completely silent inside his tent for the rest of the night. He could hear faint footsteps moving somewhere in the darkness. Whatever was outside never came close enough to be seen. When the sun finally rose, everyone gathered around the cold campfire. Danielle nervously asked if anyone had heard strange noises overnight. The group fell silent before slowly looking at one another. One by one, every friend admitted hearing their own name whispered. Each voice sounded like someone they deeply trusted, yet no one had dared to answer. Before leaving, they noticed a trail of fresh footprints leading into the forest. The prints were clear, deep, and impossible to mistake. Curiously, none of them returned toward the campsite. They packed their belongings as quickly as possible and left without speaking. No one suggested returning to that place ever again. Some questions were better left unanswered. Even today, the 4 friends refuse to camp in remote forests at night. They all remember hearing their names whispered from the darkness, and sometimes they still wonder what would have happened if one of them had answered. Olivia had spent years hiking through remote forests across the country. She had survived storms, dangerous trails, and wild animals without fear. The experience had taught her to stay calm in almost every situation, but nothing prepared her for what she was about to discover. Late one afternoon, she wandered away from the main trail searching for a better viewpoint. After walking for several minutes, she noticed smoke rising between the trees. Curious, she quietly followed it through the dense forest. What she found made her stop in her tracks. Hidden in a small clearing was a perfectly arranged campsite. A campfire was still burning as if someone had just added fresh wood. A backpack rested beside a folding chair near the fire. Yet there wasn't a single person anywhere in sight. A metal cup sat beside the fire with steam still rising into the cold air. A sleeping bag remained unzipped inside a nearby tent. Everything suggested someone had left only moments before. The silence around the campsite felt deeply unsettling. Olivia called out several times, asking if anyone needed help. Her voice echoed through the trees before fading into silence. No reply came from the surrounding forest. Only the wind answered her calls. She waited for several minutes, expecting the camper to return. Time passed, but the forest remained completely empty. Every instinct told her something wasn't right. The entire place felt strangely abandoned. Feeling uneasy, Olivia decided to leave the campsite behind. She hurried back toward the hiking trail without looking over her shoulder. The deeper she walked, the more she felt someone following her. Yet every time she turned around, nothing was there. Nearly an hour later, she arrived at the nearest ranger station. She explained everything she had seen in great detail. The ranger listened without interrupting her story. Then his expression suddenly changed. He quietly asked one unexpected question. Was there a blue backpack beside the campfire? Olivia immediately nodded without hesitation. The ranger slowly lowered his eyes. He explained that several years earlier, a camper had disappeared from that exact location. Search teams found his backpack, his tent, and the remains of his fire. But despite weeks of searching, they never found the man himself. The case was eventually closed without answers. Since that day, hikers occasionally reported finding the same mysterious campsite. Every description matched perfectly, right down to the blue backpack. Rangers always searched the area immediately after receiving the reports, but the campsite had never been found again. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine as the ranger finished speaking. She realized she had stood inside a place that shouldn't have existed anymore. Somehow she had witnessed something impossible, something that defied every logical explanation. Before leaving the station, Olivia asked if anyone had ever solved the mystery. The ranger slowly shook his head without saying another word. Some stories, he explained, are never meant to have an ending. The forest keeps its secrets forever. Olivia never returned to that trail again. Even years later, she still dreamed about the abandoned campsite. In those dreams, the campfire is always burning, and someone is always waiting just beyond the trees. If you ever discover a campsite that seems strangely abandoned, don't stay to investigate. Leave immediately and never follow unfamiliar voices into the darkness. Some places are better left untouched, because not every camper who enters the forest ever finds the way back. Thank you for listening to Midnight Echoes. If these stories kept you on edge, subscribe for more true horror stories every week. Tell us in the comments which story frightened you the most. Until next time, stay safe and never ignore the silence of the forest.